Okay, sir. So good afternoon, everybody. Today I'll be talking about approach to a patient after surgery with weight regain. So the outline of today's presentation will be how to define weight regain after bariatric surgery and the incidence of weight regain after various procedures, the risk factors leading to weight regain, evaluation of a patient, then the interventions which will and should include dietary interventions, lifestyle interventions, pharmacological therapy, and surgical options. So weight regain after bariatric surgery is not well defined in literature. There are a number of definitions, uh, starting from regain of any weight that is lost to complete relapse to the pre-surgical weight. Many patients seem to have at least some amount of regain after the surgery, or at least most patients seem to have some amount of weight regain after surgery. This is usually normal rather than clinically significant, and hence it is important to define and treat clinically significant weight regain after reaching a nadir weight after surgery. So significant weight loss should logically be associated with effect on the quality of life of the patient, on the resolution of comorbidities, and also patient satisfaction after surgery. So in terms of weight, failure after bariatric surgery can be in two forms. One is inadequate weight loss after bariatric surgery, which is usually defined as less than 50% of the excess weight lost. A loss of excess weight less than 50% at 18 months after surgery, or weight regain. I'll the slide shows the study done on the definitions of weight regain. Uh, they have used six definitions and try to identify which of them is most closely reflective of clinical significance. A number of other definitions are also present. These From this comparison of all the definitions of weight regain, they have found that definitions which take into consideration percentage of excess weight loss seem to reflect clinical significance more than other definitions. So the incidence of weight regain is also variably reported, considering that there is no consensus definition. So if you consider that any regain after reaching the lowest weight to be weight regain, then the incidence of weight regain will be much higher. While if you consider that patient has significant weight regain only if the BMI is more than 35 or very close to the preoperative BMI, then the incidence will be much lower. So there is a variable incidence seen uh, in uh, in the West. Normally, most revision for weight regain is seen primarily after the procedure of banding, while for us the important consideration of weight regain is seen after sleeve gastrectomy, most commonly 35%, 14% after RYGB, and also some percentage of weight regain after mini gastric bypass. So the causes of weight regain, we need to understand these causes because only then we can approach the patient. The causes of weight regain are divided into patient related causes and procedure related causes. First, I will be discussing the patient related causes. The most important patient related cause of weight regain seems to be nutritional non compliance. Many studies have been performed to see the effect of nutritional compliance on weight regain. The result of these studies is that a lack of appropriate nutritional follow up itself is associated with higher weight regain. In patients with weight regain or weight loss failure, poor dietary habits have been noted, which include consumption of excess calories, snacks, sweets, and fatty foods. Weight regain is also seen in patients who demonstrate behavior such as grazing, which is the word term used for consumption of food, even though continuous consumption of small quantities of food with no relation to the appetite of the patient. Another important patient factor noted is behavior drift. So immediately after bariatric surgery, patients seem to be much more motivated to adhere to nutritional and exercise interventions that are advised, while this behavior seems to slowly drift towards eating poor diet and poor lifestyle of the patient. So this also needs to be identified. Another important cause of weight regain is eating disorders, which need to be monitored, evaluated for. These include binge eating disorder. Patients with depression, alcohol, and drug use also seem to have excessive increased weight regain after bariatric surgery. Impulsive eating behaviors are also identified as cause of weight regain. Also, they have found that the number of psychiatric illnesses, patients with two or more psychiatric illnesses were found to have were found to be at least 6 times the risk of weight regain compared to patients without psychiatric illnesses. And physical activity is also an important factor which determines the patient's weight loss sustenance after bariatric surgery. So this study has identified the associations between characteristics of patient behavior and lifestyle and weight regain after Roux-en-Y gastric bypass. As we can see, a number of significant factors have been identified. Weight regain was higher in younger patients and in patients with more comorbid conditions, also higher in women. And other factors, as we have discussed, include physical factors and psychological factors. Another important but less understood cause of weight regain is hormonal or metabolic imbalance. Studies have shown that ghrelin level was correlated with weight loss and the maintenance of weight loss. In patients who have weight regain, it has seen that postprandial ghrelin levels have increased. And another important factor is glucose hemostasis, which also seems to have failed after a period of 12 to 18 months, and the patients seem to have weight regain after that period. Finally, the anatomical factors which lead to weight regain need to be identified when evaluating the patient. These are procedure dependent and will need evaluation according to the primary procedure the patient undergoes. Now, evaluation of weight regain. So as we know the factors of weight regain, we need to evaluate for the same. Patient's nutrition and behavioral assessment and mental health evaluation are the primary evaluation that is required. And unless these factors are identified, re-surgery for correcting the anatomical factors is not going to be of any use. The most important investigations that that are useful in anatomical definition of the patient's weight regain will be esophagogram or a contrast study using barium and an endoscopy. Especially in sleeve gastrectomy patients, the volume of the sleeve as measured by CT volumetry and studying gastric emptying time, especially delayed gastric emptying time, is seen in patients who have weight regain. Once, if at all, the patient's nutrition and nutritional behavioral assessment and mental health evaluation show no contributors to weight regain and the surgery is planned, it is very important that we evaluate the patient's nutritional status just as we do before the primary procedure, and we will have to evaluate for surgical fitness. It has been since a number of primary procedures the patients have undergone, especially in the beginning of bariatric surgery or open procedure. It is important to note the same. I'll be discussing the importance of this later. So this is the study which has compared the effect of salvage banding, which I'll be discussing later, for weight loss failure after gastric bypass. 28 patients underwent conversion of RVGB to a banded pouch for inadequate weight loss. And 24 out of these patients had a dilated gastric pouch and or stoma. And 22 of these patients had prior surgery. And these patients were associated with a higher number of complications due to longer time taken for adhesiolysis during the surgery. And these complications included biliary leak and colonic fistula and such complications. So the treatment of weight regain includes behavioral interventions, pharmacological interventions, and surgical interventions. So the behavioral non-pharmacological interventions begin with affirming what the patient is doing well. Since a number of our patients who return with weight regain come back to us after a significant period of loss of follow-up, like 5 6 years, it is important that we have an open-minded interview according to their as per regarding their dietary and behavioral patterns at the present, and we need to encourage in whatever they're doing right. And we have to identify these factors which lead to weight regain. uh, when counseling according to regarding the diet of the patient, emphasis has to be placed on foods with low glycemic index and increasing bulk to the foods with incorporation of gelatinous proteins. Dietary advice also plays a role in hormonal hemostasis. Non-pharmacological interventions also include interventions for eating disorders, which respond best to cognitive behavioral therapy. In these patients, then we need to emphasize on adherence to the post-bariatric diet, and this can be monitored or using self-monitoring techniques or reinforcement techniques. It has also been found that different modes of delivery of these interventions, like reinforcement of the same via telephonic or online reminders, seems to have an effect on the weight loss sustenance after bariatric surgery. Coming to the pharmacological interventions, there are 6 FDA approved appetite suppressant drugs, which we have already discussed in Dr. Devendra Sir's presentation. But all of these drugs have proven RCTs conducted in medical patients, but not so in the post bariatric weight regain groups. Though there are a number of retrospective and prospective studies. So this is a study comparing the effect of phentermine and the combination of phentermine and topiramate in post RVGB and lap adjustable gastric banding patients. As we can see, the weight loss after using anti-obesity medications in post-surgery patients is 12.8% after in the phentermine group, and 12.9% in the phentermine topiramate group. This excess weight loss percentage, is significantly higher compared to the excess weight loss percentage that we have seen in patients who have not undergone surgery, that we have discussed in the earlier presentations, which was around 4 to 8%. So another study was conducted in 2018 to study the efficacy of adjuvant weight loss medications on a number of procedures. Here, patients were divided into 4 groups, and they have received different combination of medications. The duration of anti-obesity treatment approximated between 3 to 6 months, and when patients did not showed a response after 12 weeks, they were either asked to discontinue the anti-obesity medication, or were the dose of the medication was increased to a maximum possible dose, or they were put on different medication. The mean duration of surgery to the start of medication was 38 months. Uh, and here we can see the percentage of total body weight loss after surgery at 3 months and 12 months on anti-diabetic medication. Uh, the this percentage of weight loss on anti-diabetic medications was anti-diabetic medication was most effective in patients who underwent adjustable gastric banding compared to the patients who underwent RVGB or sleeve gastrectomy. Uh, Coming to the surgical interventions, I'm going to discuss the surgical interventions depending on the primary procedure. Surgical interventions after gastric bypass. When planning a surgery, the first important thing is to identify the anatomical factors that have led to weight regain. After a bypass, the possible anatomical factors can be a dilation of the gastric pouch or the roux limb, or a dilation of the gastrojejunostomy. Also, gastric fistulas are possible after in patients after gastric bypass. So the procedures are divided into restrictive or malabsorptive procedures. Uh, Here are a few examples of restrictive procedures include salvage gastric banding or staple reduction of the pouch. Malabsorptive procedures include distal bypass or distalization and a duodenal switch procedure. Salvage gastric banding involves the placement of a gastric band around the dilated pouch and adds a restrictive component to the procedure, and which can this because it's adjustable banding, this restriction can be adjusted over time. So for when planning a gastric banding procedure in a patient, the pouch measurements become a very important factor during evaluation. This procedure avoids the complexity of multiple anastomosis and is relatively simpler. So there is no evidence as to who can undergo salvage gastric banding. Uh, it is preferable in patients who have loss of the restrictive component because of a dilated pouch, anastomosis, or roux limb. And in a study conducted by Eminian et al., patients who had a dilated pouch under or anastomosis and whose BMI was less than 42% showed better results than patients who did not have a pouch or stomal dilatation and BMI was more than 42. This is the procedure for gastric banding. The first two images show the steps of gastric banding as a primary procedure, which are similar when it comes to the revision of RVGB to gastric banding. But we should keep in mind the additions that are encountered in the secondary procedure will be much higher, leading to a higher risk of complications. So the first step is performing adityolysis and retraction of the left lobe of the liver to identify the anatomy of the secondary procedure, which will involve the gastric pouch, roux limb, and the gastrojejunostomy. After adityolysis, we need to identify the angle of His, and dissection is performed around the angle of His, and then dissection is performed at the lesser curvature, and the pars flaccida is divided, and the right crest of the diaphragm is identified. A band is now passed around the pouch and fixed. Band fixation also can vary according to the anatomy and the surgeon preference. When the pouch is dilated, uh, the band can be fixed to the dilated pouch, or the band can also be fixed to the gastric remnant above and below the band to keep it in place. It is seen that and the increase in number of, like the increased additions that we encounter during the secondary revision procedure actually seem to keep the band in place. This is the table summarizing the outcomes of salvage banding. As we can see, there is successful weight loss excess weight loss after banding over a RVGB pouch. The advantages are, as I've mentioned earlier, it's simpler compared to a reanastomosis procedure, and it is restrictive, and hence there are no consequences of malabsorption. While the disadvantages include injury due to adhesions, the higher rate of reoperation, and complications of band, which include slippage of band, which can occur from 0 to 4.5%, or band erosions. Patients have also complained of ineffectiveness of this banding over RVGB, and chronic pain and dysphagia, which have led to removal of the band. As another restrictive procedure is the stapled reduction of the pouch, described by Parikh and Gagner in 2011. In this procedure, the fundus is first dissected free from the diaphragm, and a bougie is placed, and a stapler is fired along the rule limb across the GJ and along the pouch till the angle of his. In the classically described staple reduction of pouch, staple fire included all the three components: the rule limb, the gastrojejunostomy, and the dilated pouch. While modifications of this procedure include resizing of the pouch alone without the stoma, or resizing of the pouch and the stoma. In this initial procedure that was described, including all the three components, they have found that the clinical outcomes were not significant, and the procedure should not be given as a revision option. But the bogie size that was used by Parikh et al. Varied from 32 to 60 French, and it is possible that that was the large bogie size is the reason leading to failure of the procedure. So various techniques with different bogie size were later performed. Bougie size of 38 to 40 is recommended by the ASMBS for this procedure. Distal bypass is a malabsorptive procedure to increase weight loss after RVGB. This involves more distal bypass to exclude exclude more of the small bowel. So this can be offered to patients who have no dilation of the pouch, rule limb, or stoma. And in this procedure, and in patients in whom expected adhesions are might be dense due to a history of leak after the first procedure, and also in patients whose eating habits suggest uh, eating more frequently. There are two surgical techniques for performing distalization of the pouch, which were described by Sugarman and Brolin. According to the technique described by Sugarman, the rule limb is divided, and the common channel is reduced, uh, and the total alimentary total alimentary limb length is reduced. And in the procedure described by Brolin, the BP limb is divided and reanastomosed to maintain. The BP limb length remains the same, and also the length of the total elementary limb length remains the same. Uh, all studies which have performed this procedure, distalization for weight regain after RVGB, have shown significant weight loss and dissolution of comorbidities, but a higher rate of complications as the procedure is malabsorptive. These include protein malnutrition, micronutrient deficiencies, intractable diarrhea, and one study reported two patients who died because of liver failure after the procedure. Uh, it has been suggested that the excessive malabsorption and complications consequent to that are due to very short limb length. So a limb length of total elementary limb length, of which includes the rule limb and the common channel limb, of more than 300 centimeters is recommended. Since nutritional complications are very high, post-op follow-up must be very strict in these patients. And as I mentioned before, pre-operative nutritional evaluation plays a very important role in patients in whom we want to offer distalization. Uh, this is a study which studied the outcomes of 4 procedures performed after RVGB for weight regain. These include pouch resizing, pouch banding, banding plus resizing or distalization. The mean excess weight loss at 1 year of follow-up was 63 to 81%, while pouch banding was increased with a higher risk of reoperations related to the band, such as band erosions, band slippage, or need for removal due to pain. Distal bypass was associated with a higher risk of malnutrition. Duodenal switch is another malabsorptive procedure, which is which can be performed after RVGB, but this is a more complex procedure, and 3 to 4 anastomosis are formed, and has a higher risk of malnutrition. The duodenal switch procedure involves the takedown of the gastric bypass, creation of a sleeve, followed by a Roux-en-Y or single anastomosis duodenal switch. In this procedure, the gastrojejunostomy is first divided, and the excess antrum is resected over a bougie. This resection can also be done after performing a gastrostomy, or then the gastrostomy is constructed, and excess fundus is resected against a bougie. Now the biliopancreatic limb is divided and re-anastomosed to the Roux limb. Anastomosis is then constructed between the duodenum and the loop of the ileum, as we can see here, and then an ileoileostomy is constructed. Another option of revision after weight regain for gastric bypass includes the endoscopic procedure, such as the Rose procedure, which is the restorative obesity surgery, endoluminal or endoscopic. This is a study which reports the outcomes of 27 patients who underwent Rose procedure for weight regain. The percentage excess weight loss was 8.9% at 3 months, but this weight loss was not sustained, and patients started to regain weight after a 3-year follow-up. This graph shows the size of the pouch and stoma after the procedure. Though the size has there's a decrease in the size of the stoma and pouch after procedure. We can see here that these have gradually increased, which probably contributed to the lack of sustainable weight loss with this procedure. Now, coming to surgical interventions after sleeve gastrectomy, the anatomical factors leading to weight regain include the change in the size of the sleeve. It has been noted that due to the different sizes of bougies used, the initial size of the sleeve might be different in different patients. Or patients can have a secondary sleeve dilatation, which can be segmental or generalized. There can also be retained or dilated fundus or dilated antrum. uh, so uh, in patients who have an anatomical abnormality of the sleeve, correction of the sleeve can be offered, which includes resection of the dilated part of the stomach, such as fundectomy for the dilated fundus or re-sleeve for the antral dilatation. However, the relationship between sleeve dilatation and weight regain is not very clearly shown in literature, and it has also seen and it has been recommended that this re-sleeve procedure was to be offered to patients in whom the fundus regrowth was accompanied by a significant GERD. This is a study reporting outcomes of 13 patients who underwent re-sleeve gastrectomy for weight regain or inadequate weight loss. All patients in this series had an associated dilated fundus, as we can see in this image. And in these patients with the re-sleeve, the excess weight loss percentage was up to 71% at 1 year. Patients also showed resolution of hypertension and joint disease. Conversion of sleeve to another procedure, the options include conversion to RVGB duodenal switch or mini gastric bypass banding or other procedures. Since sleeve gastrectomy was first performed as part of the two-step duodenal switch procedure, it is only logical that sleeve gastrectomy can be converted to a duodenal switch. But the most commonly performed and preferred procedure after sleeve gastrectomy and in patients with weight regain is the Roux-en-Y gastric bypass. These images show the conversion of a sleeve gastrectomy to Roux-en-Y gastric bypass. The sleeve can be refashioned to a gastric pouch, and Roux-en-Y gastric bypass can be performed. This shows the image. This image shows the conversion of sleeve gastrectomy to a duodenal switch. As performing sleeve, the sleeve is first part of the duodenal switch procedure. So the sleeve is left in place, and duodenectomy is performed, and duodenal-ileostomy and ileoileostomy can be performed. This image shows banding after sleeve gastrectomy for weight regain or failure of weight loss. When the procedure of RVGB and BPD and duodenal switch were compared for a secondary procedure for weight regain, it was seen that duodenal switch procedure had a higher weight loss, which was 27%, compared to RVGB, which is 9%. But at the expense of increased vitamin deficiencies after the duodenal switch procedure. Moon et al. Published a retrospective analysis of 21 patients who underwent conversion from sleeve gastrectomy due to weight regain. Of the secondary procedures performed included RVGB, SADI-S, and duodenal switch procedure. The period of conversion, the period from sleeve gastrectomy to conversion was at a mean of 18 months. The BMI at the second procedure for all these patients was significantly different, and when adjusted for the BMI at the second procedure, the rate of weight loss after RVGB, as we can see in this image, was the fastest compared to the other procedures. Endoscopic sleeve gastrectomy is another option for the management of weight regain after sleeve gastrectomy. In a retrospective analysis conducted on 34 patients who underwent this procedure, it was found that at 1 year, 82% of patients had more than 10% of total weight loss, and 100% had more than 25% of excess weight loss. uh, though not very commonly performed in our setting, gastric banding is associated with a very high rate of resurgery for both weight regain and chronic complications. And the surgical interventions possible after gastric banding uh, depend on the anatomy of the band. In case of a loose band, recalibration is a possible option. The band needs to be removed if in case of a slipped band or band erosion. After band removal, possible secondary surgeries can be sleeve gastrectomy, Roux-en-Y gastric bypass, or a duodenal switch. It has been seen that the weight loss after all these procedures was quite satisfactory, but the complication rate was higher compared to a primary sleeve gastrectomy, RVGB, or a duodenal switch procedure. Kui J et al. In 2018 published a review of 84 patients who underwent resurgery. 43 of these patients underwent resurgery for weight regain, and the patients who underwent weight regain had the BMI of more than 40 or 35 with comorbidities at 1 year after the primary procedure. And these patients were given a trial of 3 to 6 months of anti-obesity medications, and they have given a clinical pathway of evaluation of patients who come with weight regain. So the first part of evaluation includes a psychiatric and dietitian consultation,